Hey everybody. The last section of this class is supposed to deal with interactions between food production and the environment. So looking a little bit at the chemistry of pollution and how those different pollutants cause problems with the air, the water, and other natural resources. So this week's topic is going to focus on our changing climate. We're going to look at some air pollution impacts caused by agriculture. And there's a lot of different viewpoints on this issue of climate change, and so I'm not going to try to sway you one way or the other, but I just want to give you some of the basic information and then you can form some of your own opinions. So, weather versus climate. First of all, weather is an example, the temperature in New York City averaged 82 degrees Fahrenheit on July 20th, 2010. Okay? The In contrast, the temperature in New York City averaged 77 degrees Fahrenheit for the month of July between 1981 and 2010. Okay, so which one of those is weather and which one is climate? We think of weather as being short term. So the top example, the temperature for one day, that's the weather. The bottom example, the temperature for New York City over about let's see here, 30-year time frame, that's climate. Okay, looking at a longer term trend or pattern. So the greenhouse effect is something you've probably heard of quite a bit. Oh, sorry, some of these words are a little bit hard to read, but I'll talk through all of it. So here's the basics. Okay, most radiation is absorbed by the Earth's surface and warms it. So the sun shines and the Earth's surface absorbs that radiation or that heat. Some of the solar radiation is reflected by the Earth and the atmosphere. And then some of the infrared radiation, this third little arrow, passes through the atmosphere. Some is absorbed and readmitted in all directions by greenhouse gas molecules. The effect of this is to warm the Earth's surface and the lower atmosphere. Okay, infrared radiation is emitted by the Earth's surface back out. Okay, so that's the greenhouse effect in a nutshell. So sources of greenhouse gases, there's a lot of different places where we get these greenhouse gases. The decomposition of food waste in landfills is one source. The use of nitrogen-based fertilizers on crops. So we spread a lot of fertilizer on our crop ground in order to produce our crops, and that contributes to greenhouse gases. Transporting food products, so semis and trains and all the other things that are hauling food products are creating greenhouse gases. And you can see over here the gases that are created. I'm not going to read through each one of those. Bacterial decomposition in rice paddies, not something that we worry about here so much, but that is a factor worldwide. Livestock manure is what we're going to focus on a little bit more, or livestock in general. They are emitting methane and nitrous oxide. When we clear forests for farmland, which happens a lot in lesser developed countries near the equator, carbon dioxide is a gas that's produced. Cattle belching might sound kind of funny, but just the ruminating process that cattle go through, they have excess gas that they produce. Methane, carbon dioxide, and nitrous oxide. And then running agricultural machinery also contributes to some greenhouse gases. These are the agricultural sources of greenhouse gases. Keep in mind that there are a ton of ways that humans in general contribute greenhouse gases. Okay, so I want you to keep that in mind, and we'll talk about that a little further on. Okay, climate change impacts on agriculture. If the climate changes, we're going to see a loss of some topsoil. We may see a fungus invasion in corn crops. We might see an increase in crops' water needs, an increased cost to fight weeds, higher food prices. There's a lot of impacts that there might be on agriculture. The food system, greenhouse gas emissions, the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions, and this, by the way, is based on one study. You can see the data down here. So you're going to see different numbers depending on the study that you look at, but red meat production accounts for about 30% of the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions produced by food. So we're just looking at the greenhouse gas emissions as a result of food production. Beverages, sweets, oils, and others is a huge chunk, 21%, because there's so much processing and so much transportation there. And then we see dairy, cereal, carbs, chicken, fish, and eggs here down at the bottom. The U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by supply chain stage. So this is once again just in the agricultural industry. 83% of the emissions are due to the production of the crop or animal. 11% is transport, and 6% are retail greenhouse gas emissions. So globally, livestock are responsible for about 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions that are from human activities. Okay, so this is just, so 15% of the emissions from human activities are due to livestock. The other 85% of global emissions are due to things like transportation, all of us driving our cars around, pollution from factories and buildings. There's a whole bunch of other things that contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. 39% of, so if we're looking just at the livestock greenhouse gas emissions, 39% are from enteric fermentation. This is a digestive process in animals that produces methane. Okay, so just by the animals being alive and producing and living and breathing and breaking down or ruminating, they're producing 39% of the 15% that livestock produce. Manure accounts for 26%, producing feed crops that feed animals, that's 24%, and then we've got some other uses here. So I guess the thought by some is that if we reduce the amount of meat that we consume worldwide, we could have an impact on greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, so you can formulate your own opinion on that. I have my own. I'm not going to share it, but I want you to think about what impact does livestock production have on worldwide greenhouse gas emissions. So everything that we do this week is going to be focused on that topic, and also we'll just look a little bit at air pollution in general. Okay, as always, if you have any questions, send me an email.